Welcome back to the 10 Tabs Open podcast. This is your host, Alex Howell, and today we had on a very good, very old friend of mine, Andy Brown, or Andrew Brown as he's known professionally. Andy has a really cool story. He's done so many different things, so many things that you wouldn't expect, but he currently works for the American Theater Guild and is an advertising associate there, but he worked for the Kansas City Zoo for several years. He's going to get into that a little bit, but he was able to really blend his love of theater through several different employment opportunities. And when I saw that he had moved into his current position, and I'd been watching him for the last several years at his old position, I just had to have him on to hear the story. And Andy is one of the most fun people you could meet. He always was entertaining. I knew him in high school. We went to college together for a semester, and then he went back to UCM, where he randomly met a ton of my friends from State Fair Community College. And this guy he's just a solid individual and somebody that I very, very much appreciate. And Andy, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I'm going to just let the podcast allow you to explain your history, because as the person that you are, and as the person that for the audience that he is, you're going to see a very genuine soul, a very nice person, and somebody who has just been able to blend his passion into almost every bit of his life. So I hope you enjoy. It was a wonderful conversation. It was great to have him on. Have a great time listening, guys. Thanks. All right, you want to talk in, see if it's picking up?
Sure. Test, test. 1, 2, 1, 2.
Nice. All right, Andy. Thanks for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me, Alex.
Absolutely. So let's talk first, because I think it's very important, about your time at the zoo.
Oh, yeah.
Because that looked fun.
Yes. So I worked at the zoo for 3 years. It was a great time. I was in their education department, and basically my job was to hang out and have fun. Yeah, it was a cool time. I was on their show and chats team. So basically I would narrate the sea lion shows. I'd help out with bird show. At the very beginning, I wasn't allowed to speak bird show, but I worked my way up. I got there. It was a good time.
Well, it seemed like you stuck around there for a few years. It just seemed like it was a fun thing to do.
Yeah. Well, it was. It was a really fun job. They were really easy to work, like, hours-wise. They would work around my schedule, which was really nice.
Nice.
So that was a big reason as to why I stayed. But then also it was just a good time. I was a lot more into playwriting back then, and so the zoo would let me write shows for them to do at the zoo.
Oh,
so
nice.
Yeah, so it was like, oh, okay, cool. Well, let me just stay here, and I'll help write these, like, shows with educational content to, like, promote zoo things. Right,
That's a good feather in your cap.
Yeah, it was cool. It was a good time.
So how do you work your way up to, like, the way I always envisioned it was, like, you get the birds first, and then you get they give you the polar bears, and then eventually you get to play with the tigers.
No, not at all. So basically, it's kind of every section of the zoo has a team. So the polar bears would fall into, like, where the penguins are. I can't remember. Water's Edge, I think, is the name of that
Gotcha.
team. But they handle most of the stuff that's topside. And there's just different teams where different keepers are assigned to animals. And
Gotcha.
they all, have the ones that they work with, because trust
your own
building.
gangs.
Yeah, trust building is really important when it comes to animal keeping.
Wild animals.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think you want to fuck with a polar bear.
Yeah, they are wild. They might be in captivity, but they're wild.
Yeah. I always forget. So we took Connor. Unfortunately, we didn't this year just because things kind of got out of control. But we tried to take him a couple of times last year. I think we ended up taking him like 3 or 4 times out to the zoo. I always forget how massive that place is.
Yeah.
Like the Kansas City Zoo is built on, in the land that Swope gave, along with Swope Park and everything else.
Yeah.
So they basically have an unlimited expansion capability is what it seems like.
They have, like, they host 5Ks there. Like, you can run a 5K at the zoo, and that's honestly a lot of people, I always thought was a smart idea. People who are friends of the zoo, you can go to the zoo anytime.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, I don't know much about their lives. I didn't talk to them. But I'm assuming it was kind of a lot of housewives
Yeah.
that have a little extra time in the mornings would like come and just run at the zoo.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was awesome because you're like, oh, I'm tired of running. Let me stop and look at some elephants real quick.
Yeah, well, and the scenery between the exhibits is beautiful too. I mean, there's I can't remember what the two are, but kind of the main area, and then Africa has that beautiful bridge that you can go over. I mean, you're going over Swope Park. It's all trees.
You are literally in the woods.
Yeah.
It's funny. We used to get a lot of people complaining that like snakes would be out of the exhibit.
Nope.
Like, no, that's a black rat snake, and it belongs right here in the woods, doing its job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Jesus. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
I always think about the nightmare being like a tiger gets out, and you're just like, yeah, they don't really belong here. But yeah, snake, yeah, I can
Or
see.
the squirrels.
Yeah.
They can get rough, too.
Yeah. Well, at places like that, I mean, I noticed this at Mizzou. Like, squirrels that are around enough people, they don't care.
No.
They will get as close to you as possible if they think there's any potential for food.
College campus squirrels don't give a shit.
No.
That is true.
No, you expect them to just like peel back like PBR and hang out. It's like, how calm are you, man?
Right.
Yeah, I was every time that you would post something, I would just like have to click on it because I thought it was so neat. It was like you don't think about some of the. To me, that's just a really interesting job to be able to like say like you worked there because how many people do? Really, I mean, people try to like they go for I'm just going all corporate. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do that. It's like no, I'm going to go do exactly what I like as far as like writing plays and writing educational shows.
Yeah,
and I'm also going to be able to play with animals.
Yeah, it's a fun time.
Yeah,
I like it.
So you are with now. Correct me if I'm wrong. The American Theater Guild.
Yes, so we are the American Theater Guild, formerly Theater League. So that is where I am now. When I was working at the zoo, I was actually part-time as a PSR, patron service representative, at Theater League. So I was part-time at Theater League, part-time at the zoo. And between that, I got plenty of hours everywhere. Both places were really great, liked working with me, so they would, schedule kind of around what I needed to make it work. Unfortunately, that meant there were several weeks on end where I'd be working like 7 days in a row.
Yeah.
So, that's the problem with like just part-time work.
Yeah.
Fortunately now I am full-time at American Theater Guild. So I left the zoo for that reason because
Gotcha.
I didn't need to just like be at the zoo every weekend. So,
just go there as a patron now.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I can still go enjoy.
Exactly.
But yeah, so now I'm full-time with the American Theater Guild, working in their advertising department. Basically, my job would be to be in charge of the planning and execution of our print and outdoor plans. So, yeah.
So they had, when I looked it up online, I thought it was one of those, and I've had a couple of people on where the description of what the company does or the nonprofit does is very broad.
Right.
But at the same time, like when you actually get to know the organization or get to know somebody from the organization, it is very specific as to what they do.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about the American Theater Guild, what exactly, like what's their, I don't want to say, like don't cap this at like, what's your 30-second elevator pitch? Like what do they do as a whole? Because it sounds like they kind of help to organize different theater groups that are going to different theaters, but I'm guessing that's probably not perfect.
Yeah, no, not exactly. So basically, the American Theater Guild, I believe, you might want to fact check this, but I believe we are the largest not-for-profit Broadway presenter.
Okay.
So we have 12 different markets at this time where we help produce Broadway tours.
Gotcha.
So we basically just kind of work with venues in that area and bring the tours.
And I saw like in Kansas City you have the Music Hall, and was there one other?
Kansas City and the Kaufman Center. So the
Center,
Music Hall and the Kaufman Center are where we present. Kansas City is a little bit different, and I'll be honest, I don't want to get too deep into the woods with that because I don't understand how it all works. But there's also Broadway Across America, which presents at the Music Hall, whereas we present at the Kaufman Center, and our season ticket holders have access to both.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Venues and shows. Yeah.
Gotcha. So what is it that you do exactly there?
I am the senior advertising associate. So like I said, I do the print and outdoor. I also help prepare the ad packs for settlement, as well as make sure that all of our front of house materials are out on display. And
you're one of the guys that make sure that people know about the show and that the show looks good.
Exactly. Yeah. So we have advertising that we did.
So are you talking to, like, are you one of the people that's talking to the businesses that you're trying to get ads out to, or is it just a lot of...
Yeah, my job would mainly be like if we want to put up a billboard in Kansas City, then we have our billboard rep that I need to get in contact with and schedule like the dates that we'd like to run and negotiate contracts, stuff like that.
Okay, that sounds like fun.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a great time.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting to see both sides because I mean, you've been in plays. You've obviously you were talking about, which I want to get into a little bit more about the fact that you were in playwriting for a little bit of time there.
Yeah.
But you've been in I'd say the production side of it, and now to be more on the business side of it, that's got to be an interesting transition to say, like, this is something I love, but from a very different angle.
Yeah, it is. I think one of my favorite things about starting the new job was, like, getting to see that other side, because as a performer, you don't care.
No.
You know, like, right, you're just like, oh, I have to show up for rehearsals, and I have to
do your thing, I'm going to do my thing.
Right, exactly. Like, you don't put a ton of thought into all the stuff that goes behind you being able to do this show.
Exactly.
Because, like, at the end of the day, if people aren't there to watch, then there's
no point in
no cash flow. Right. So that it just won't be able to continue happening.
Right.
So it's interesting to get to be involved in the other part of that for a little while.
Absolutely. Yeah, I always find it interesting, and I talked with when Eric Gazel, my director from State Fair, came on here. I talked with him about the fact that and Kristen, I said this to her as well. It's like I could not do it. Like, there's no part of me that looks at directing and thinks this is my thing.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's a lot of people that are on the production side that probably look at your side that you're on now and think the same. So you actually went and just said, like, yeah, why not? I'll do that for a little bit.
It's fun. I like it.
Yeah, but I mean, the business side is, it doesn't seem like it because it's not the thing that you see. It's not the product at the end of the day.
Right.
But it's without question just as, if not more important. I mean, you don't want to, like, without the show Hamilton, you're not going to have the people.
Right.
But, I mean, there are some lesser-known shows that are incredible value. I mean, are very good shows that some people might not see if you don't have really good ads, really, if you don't have a strong business sense and a strong team behind you, you're not going to see that great show.
It's very important to get the word out. You know, that's just the end of the story, right? It's like, okay, well, if people don't know that this opportunity for them to see this show is coming, then they're not going to go see it.
Exactly. Well, and I mean, even things like, seemingly easier things like, trying to advertise a show to season ticket holders. I mean, you want to make sure that, if they see that Phantom is on the market, but then there's another show before, you want to make sure to get them at that show as well.
Right.
Yeah. So
exactly.
Fun stuff.
Yeah.
So talk to me about your playwriting stuff. Was that something that you were doing for a while? How many did you?
So when I was in college, I wrote a 10-minute show. That was just really silly, and it was a good time. I ended up submitting that to a conference out in Alaska, the Last Frontier Theater Conference, and got accepted to go out there.
Wow.
So that was a really great time. I went to Valdez. They had this panel of like professional theater, like people, which at the time I was 23. It was so over my head that this was such a cool experience I was getting to do. I was just like, yeah, man, Alaska's beautiful. So I went out there and got my ass handed to me. They were like, oh, this is not a good show. And I was like, oh, well, I wrote it for fun.
And Alaska's beautiful.
Right, I know, exactly. But I did. I took that to heart. And while I was at the conference, I attended workshops and things. And so ended up writing another 10-minute play that I submitted for the next year and got to come back with. And then when I came back with that, they were like, "Oh no, this is really good." And I was like, "See, nice. I told you I was talented."
Don't think about that first one that you saw.
Exactly. I wasn't even trying with that one. This is what I can do when I try.
That seems to me like one of the most difficult things in the world is to write a play.
Yeah.
I mean, anything like it sounds. I mean, I don't want to say like it sounds counterintuitive because I don't think it really is for most people. But like one of the greatest things you can do is write the show write a show that people respond to, that people respect, that people love. But at the same time, how many different plays are on the rack that are fantastic, that are wonderful, that nobody's ever heard of?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you're taking a huge gamble with that. Not everybody's going to be Lin-Manuel Miranda.
No. Very few people are
Yeah.
him. I believe there's only one of him, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, so that is true. I think for me, what's interesting about playwriting is that you have to create an entire world.
Yeah.
So I mean, you can obviously base your play in the world we already live in, so that people, kind of get where you're coming from with that. But even in that, you still have to be developing characters that are going to move the story forward, and dialogue that's not going to make people want to leave. That I think is a very difficult part of playwriting, is just like kind of capturing how people actually talk to each other,
right,
as opposed to
hello Jim, hello
right,
Bill.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, how many times do you actually use someone's name in conversation?
Exactly.
With them,
Well, yeah, and I mean, I think the difference between writing, and I'm not trying to trash people who write novels, but I think the difference between somebody who's writing a novel as opposed to somebody who's writing a play is, like you said, you're concentrating on dialogue. And really, as much as you might think you have control over the environment, I mean, you could have a 3-page long set instruction, light instruction at the very beginning of your play, but the moment dialogue starts, you have no control.
Right.
I mean, I probably am mistaken, but I can't think of a single play that I've ever been in there or that I've seen where somebody's written the blocking. I mean, it's all about the individual set. It's all about
that playwright is a control freak.
Yeah, and nothing's gonna, like, they're never gonna get it worked. I mean, it's always gonna have to change because the set might change. So, yeah.
Well, and then because you also have to take into account that not every theater is the same.
Exactly.
Like, venues are so different that if you have a super complex set, your show might not be produced because of that.
Right.
If your show can't physically get onto the stage of the theater, then goodbye.
Yeah.
That's
exactly
kind of what you're running up against with that. So it's very true.
Yeah. So I mean, in the idea that you're writing dialogue, I mean, you made a very good point in the sense that you're trying to capture the way that most people speak. And I think that there's something to creating a world where you're allowing, try to put this right, you're allowing for the scenery, you're allowing for the environment to be determined by somebody else, even though you might have it in your mind. You're allowing for the environment to be determined by somebody else. So therefore, when you are writing, you kind of know it has to fit.
Yeah.
Like it's almost 100% based on that. So your story is told through dialogue, as opposed to writing a novel where you're just like, here's a little bit of dialogue between two characters, and then her hand went briskly across his chest, and then he left, and then they were mad, and then It's like, yeah, you don't get to do that.
Right.
That's dialogue. You can say he enters, he leaves, but pretty much from that, it's like you better have that right.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So, did you stick to the 10-minute side, or did you end up writing things that were longer?
I have written a couple full-length things.
That's impressive.
Nothing that's ever been produced.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that you've done it is impressive.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's more about just a good time. I'm a creative person. I like writing, so it was. I don't want to say it was easy, but it was just.
Well, to some
when
people.
I had spare time, right? I would sit down and I would write, and you just kind of force yourself to get through it, and knowing sometimes it's gonna suck, and at
the end of the day, you'll go back and go, no, not that one.
Well, and I think that's what's important to keep in mind, is that everything can be rewritten.
Yeah, very true.
Like if you go back, this is a rule I have, is if I go back and I am rereading something that I have written and I lose interest in it, I cannot expect an audience member to keep their interest in this scene,
Yeah, because you're already tied to it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just looking at that as like, okay, well, why is this not working for me? What would make it be better? And then you fix it.
Nice.
Yeah.
And what kind of writer are you? The kind of person that just has to sit down at the computer and push themselves through? Or is it like, I have inspiration, now I'm going to write this scene?
Yeah, I think it, for me, most of the time, I actually will base entire plays off of a title. Like, I'll get, like, just a really cool idea for a title of a play in my head and be like, ooh, yeah, I want to write that play.
Yeah.
And then I'll just kind of find what I need
Nice.
about the title. It's like, okay, well, this is like a fun, punny title. How can I get around this?
Yeah.
And then, like, without fail, by the end of the play, I've changed the title.
Of course.
Yeah. But that's kind of the inspiration at the very beginning. Is
That's interesting that you can write a play entirely off of a title.
I mean,
And
I didn't
again,
say they
it's
were
totally
good,
fine
right?
that it might. Well, and it's fine that it'll change. It's fine that some of them might not be good, but I mean, it's just interesting to see how different people put things together. Like some people might write the entire play in 6 months and then take a year to figure out what the title's going to be.
Yeah.
Some people might have the title like you, write the play, and whether they keep the title or not, that's what it's based on.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an interesting way of looking at things. And again, I respect a lot of people who can write those things because, one, like you said, you're creating a world.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, you can say, Berlin 1945, people get the general idea, but you're still creating conversations that didn't exist between 2 to 20 people.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
or if you're doing a one-man show, just one guy talking the whole time. I'm not a big fan of one-man shows.
No, I've
I don't know if you could tell that through my sarcasm.
Yeah. I don't know that I've ever because I've seen some good one-man shows, but I don't know that I've ever left a one-man show just been like, oh man, what a good waste of my hour. I mean, what a good hour spent.
That was just so worth my time.
Yes.
Great.
Like I said, I've seen some very good one-man shows.
Yeah.
I always appreciate when there's more than one, though.
Yeah.
I'm a character-driven type of person. Like when I see theater, when I write, I really, it's important to me to have connection. And I just think that's hard to have connection when there's only one person on the stage.
Yeah.
It's not impossible.
Yeah.
It can be done, but it's harder. You're not setting yourself up for it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just you. And I think this is one of the reasons that I actually started this is people like interaction. People like genuine interaction, and the best shows show that genuine interaction. Now, it might be a little bit of suspension of, belief or reality to watch certain shows and say, like, this obviously happened. They broke out into song for an hour and a half straight.
Right.
Like, that obviously is a little different, but to see that kind of genuine interaction in a play, I think is a lot of the reason why some of the really good ones are as good as they are, because if you have actors on stage that can, bring that to life, it's a pretty incredible thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why you can have a show that's just 2 or 3 people, and it can be phenomenal. But to have a one-person show is like, you better learn how to talk to yourself well, my friend.
Well, and I personally feel like that is so much to put on the actor.
Yeah.
It's like that guy's not getting a break. He
No.
can't leave the stage.
No.
Yeah, that's a lot. It's a huge responsibility.
Yeah, my opinion on that, too, would be that, like, a lot of the, difficult part in acting is when you don't have lines. Mm-hmm. And so when you have lines the whole time, you don't have the ability to react to anything.
Right. You're never reacting.
Exactly. I mean, that's why I like stand-up comedy, is because, like, those guys, they write out everything. I mean, it's still they might, go off the rails a little bit here and there, but for the most part, it's their written bit.
Right.
And they go on stage, they perform the hell out of it. They're a one-man show, but their interaction isn't with somebody else on stage, it's with the audience.
Yes.
And it's bringing kind of them, it's breaking the fourth wall constantly. I mean, there is no fourth wall at that point.
Right.
But it's the other 3 that are kind of not existent at that point. But I mean, it's something where you have that same interaction, and you don't get to do that in a one-man show. It's just you. Yeah. You might make people laugh, but that's it. So it's tough. Yeah,
it is.
So you want to write one?
I want to write a one-man show? No.
Well, and so one thing that I really respect about kind of your journey here is that, when you were doing theater, when we were doing theater in high school, you were involved, and then you went to college, and now you're still in the industry. And there's several people that I've had on this podcast that, whether it's acting, whether they've created a nonprofit, whether they work at one, whether they've just been trying, I'm trying to bring somebody else on that we both know that I'll tell you after the podcast. Okay. But, who's still out there trying to be an actor. And I really respect the fact that when you have a passion for something, you absolutely stick with it. I'm just in awe of the amount of people that were a part of our high school class and were with me at State Fair, and then obviously with you in different locations as well.
Yeah.
That, I mean, and you said it when we were upstairs, it's like that the theater community in this area is incredible.
Yes. And it's incredibly small.
And which is crazy. Like, I feel like I don't know so many people, but I feel like in the last, since I started this, I feel like my network with that has grown so significantly.
Yeah.
And the amount of passion that those people display is pretty incredible. I mean, I went to the arts asylum, everybody was happy, and it was like, oh, this is what it feels like not to work when you hate your job.
I mean, that's a good point right there. I think on my end, at least, it does feel like a little more selfish. It's like, oh yeah, well, I'm doing this thing I love, but also it's like, I've had jobs where I wasn't doing what I loved.
Yeah.
And I left those jobs, so I've sold ADT security.
Yeah.
I've been a copywriter.
This sounds like a lot of good material for your playwriting life.
Oh, thank you. Yes, that's really what I'm doing, is I'm just living life.
Just trying to gather as many experiences as possible.
Mm-hmm. It's very strategic how I'm living my life.
Yeah, ADT.
Not at all just chaos.
Yeah. Well, that's theater.
Yeah.
Well, selling ADT has to have a few interesting stories going around it. I've only seen the guy. I assume you were door to door.
Oh no, not at all. No,
okay.
Yeah. So I worked more. It was for what's the name of that company? They're called Safe Haven. They're still located here in Kansas City. Yeah. But I was more on phone kind of.
Okay.
So my sales were based out of Houston, which I always thought was kind of weird. I was like, oh, I don't know anything about Houston, but I'm just going to sell these people security. But yeah, it was mainly just kind of getting relationship building with realtors, and then when the real, like if you're in realtor. You're in realtor, right? You know what I mean?
I am that.
Realty.
Yes. I is that.
Yeah. So it's just like, if you find someone that you can trust to give your clients a good deal on their security system, and they're going to get a discount through you, then sure, why not recommend that?
Right.
But also a huge part of that is like, part of my job was I had to keep those realtors happy, and I have to like go out of my way and provide like above and beyond customer service. Yeah. Because if you mess that up, then that reflects poorly on the realtor, and then they're not going to want to work with you anymore. Yep. So it was a very stressful job.
Yeah, I'm always a little terrified for the people that go door to door and sell it.
Oh yeah.
Like, I wouldn't do that.
I don't have that in me.
No.
I'm a people person, but not that much.
Yeah. The closest I think I've ever been to getting in a physical altercation with someone was somebody. I don't think it was security. I think they were selling something else. But depending on what city I live in, and I haven't had to do it here because it's a new home community, they expect these houses to be unoccupied anyway.
Yeah.
But people come door to door. But it was something like a lawn sales or service, and I asked them for their permit, and they wouldn't provide it, and they basically started to cuss me out on my stoop. It's like, that's an interesting idea.
Right.
So
You're someone I want to work with.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I think I was like 23, I was 23 because I think I just moved in with Nikki, and I was not happy. And at that point, I was 23, and I didn't really have my wits about me ever.
Yeah.
So I was ready to like scream this guy down to the driveway, and he turned around and said something to me. I can't remember if I said something like, "I'm really sorry that you're a blank," and he called me sorry guy, and I chased him down the road.
Sorry guy.
Yeah, he tried to make fun of me by calling me sorry guy, and I was like, that's the last straw. So, but yeah, so I chased him about 20 feet, and I was like, I'm going to get in a fight. I'm going to go to jail.
Right. Is this worth it?
Yeah. It's
Is this where we are?
just started my job.
Yeah.
Like, that's probably not a good idea. It's like, what am I going to do in a fight? Like, I've never fought in my life.
Right.
I've never had to.
Like,
punch him like, take that.
And now it's over. Don't even try to hit me.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's funny.
See? Okay. Well, I think we've got some good stories here.
Yeah.
So tell me about your story, like post high school. Like, what was your college storyline?
My college storyline. So I graduated from RIPEC in 2007. RIPEC. So I graduated high school in 2007, and then I did one semester at Mizzou.
I remember that.
Yep. Because I think that was the same semester you had like transferred from State Fair to Mizzou.
Yep. Yeah,
right?
I was an associate transfer.
Yeah. So I was there for one semester. Absolutely hated it. At the time, I went to Mizzou because I wanted to be in journalism. Yeah. Because I did the KPTV, all that stuff in high school. And after about halfway through the first semester, I realized that journalism is not what I wanted to do with my life. And then the tuition prices at Mizzou just seemed real steep.
They
now
were.
that like I was an undeclared major, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, so I decided to transfer to Warrensburg because it felt more like the place to figure it out, and Mizzou felt more like the place to once you had it figured out.
Yeah, well, it is interesting because that story I've heard probably 50 times. I mean, that exact same story from Ray Peck to Mizzou, and just going, nope, this isn't for me for whatever reason. I mean, Mizzou, it's so big, it's so massive that, like at the time when I went, I needed that. Like I had to get out of Sedalia.
Right.
Like I went from Raymore, which was close enough to Kansas City, and then to go to Sedalia was just not for me. So when I went to Mizzou, I was like, okay, well, at least this is a bigger town. It's a college town. But you go to your first class with 350, 400 people, and you kind of realize like, oh, now I have to study.
Yeah, it's intimidating.
Yeah.
Especially like, Ray Peck, great school, but class sizes were small. We not a lot of competition for the teachers' attention there.
Nope.
Whereas when you get that first big lecture hall, we have 400 other people there with you.
Yeah.
And I think it was. I kind of looking back, I do wish that I had gone to like a State Fair or Longview to like allow me a little more time to adjust. Because I think had I gone to Mizzou at 20 versus at 18, it might have been a different story.
100%. Yeah,
There's a lot of development that happens in those couple years.
Yeah, I mean, trusting yourself to be away from home and with all of the peer pressure that comes with that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I moved into an apartment right after high school. Probably not a great idea. It's like I should have at least been in a dorm where other more responsible people could yell at me if needed.
Right. Like you had someone to actually kind of check you a
little
bit.
Yeah. But yeah, so sorry I
interrupted
interrupted
your
story.
Up to their own device.
No, I was one of them.
Yeah.
So you went to a semester at Mizzou, said, F this is not for me, and then went to Warrensburg, which is an awesome school.
Yes.
I love that campus.
Yeah. And they, turns out, obviously, I have a very large interest in theater. Warrensburg had a great theater department, still do. They're developing, I think they're still developing, it might just be developed now, but they've started a new dance major there too. So they're in the Department of Theater and Dance.
Wow.
That was my senior year as I was graduating. They started offering that.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so they have a great little department.
Yeah.
Really, really good faculty that were very supportive, always there for me.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, and how involved were you in the shows and what were you?
Well, it's funny because I was actually not a theater major until my senior year.
Oh, okay.
I was a theater minor, and I don't know. I feel like because in high school I was always really involved with the shows. I was cast in almost everything, and I would always be like kind of the comedic relief, or I was never the lead.
Yeah.
Which at the time seemed really important, but like looking back, I'm like, oh no, my time was so much better spent not being the lead. But yeah, so I think like just because I had never like gotten that like, oh yes, I'm a star experience, I kind of felt I wasn't good enough to be an actor. Like I was always just like, oh, okay, well, this is a hobby for me, so I just like doing it. It's something I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna continue to just like audition for shows, and whatever they give me, I'll take. And so I did. I was involved with almost every production at UCM while I was there. Not so much freshman year. I didn't do anything freshman year because half of it was spent at Mizzou.
Yep.
But yeah, so sophomore year through my senior year, I did either publicity, because I was a PR major for a really long time.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so I would either do publicity or sound design or just bunches of stuff. I mean, obviously I acted a bit. And, like the musicals. I was always cast in the musicals.
Yeah, I mean, that's... To me, and I only had 2 years of it, and it was community college as opposed to kind of a university setting. But I was kind of amazed that, like, with high school, I feel like you're so regimented at the time. I mean, you're at school, between 7 and 8 hours a day, no matter what. And then in theater, I mean, you had to still get your homework done, and you were at 3-hour rehearsals.
Yeah.
Every time.
Oh, yeah.
And when, you got to the last 2 or 3 weeks, I think it was 2 most of the time and then 3 with Anasazi because there were 33 musical numbers in it. But like, then you're there for 5 or 6 hours. And on
sometimes
weekends.
10 hours.
And sometimes
right.
10.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, in addition to being at school. So, yeah, you're just kind of sitting there going like, this is more than a job.
Yeah,
this
the
is crazy.
second full-time job. 'Cause
Exactly.
you're already a full-time student.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was really strange to me when I went to college, and I got to State Fair, and I was just like, okay, so normally I'd have probably 3 classes a day, and then I'd have like 2 classes or 3 classes on Tuesdays, Thursdays. So I think I carried 15 hours most of the time, 18 sometimes. When I went to Mizzou, I had to make up for all of that because I was a theater major that went to finance. And but I was taking normally 15 hours a semester, and, it all seemed pretty doable. The first couple of shows, I just did that, and then I eventually got a job in the spring because I was like, now I'm bored. I need something more to do, and mainly I need beer money, but I also need something that can carry me through the summer. And but I was amazed at the directors who, took care of those shows, because you're talking about people that are independent. Mm-hmm. And they're able to do their own thing. They're able to be off campus. Their parents can't tell them to come home at 10. Their parents can't tell them to do this. It's like my parents were, 100 miles away.
Yeah.
And, I had a phone and would answer them, but that was pretty much it. They really couldn't do much.
If I tell them I'm in my room studying,
exactly.
They don't know the difference.
Exactly. And it's so for me, the directors were always and this is probably why I look at directors and go, I wouldn't want to do what you do. I appreciate you so much, but I would not want to do what you do, because you have college students that are actively talking about what they're going to do that night, and then go to class the next morning, and then do whatever in God's name they're going to do, and then you're just like, please show up to rehearsal. Mm-hmm. But it does seem like it kind of attracts a fairly responsible crowd. I mean, you can be ridiculous, and we all probably were.
Right.
But it does seem like it's something that does attract a fairly responsible crowd too. Like if you're willing to put 3 hours a day on top of already doing a full-time job, like you said, you're probably the kind of person that's going to be fairly responsible.
Right. And I think what goes into a lot of that is that nobody gets into theater for money. It's you have a passion for it. You love to do it. And so if at the end of the day, I think you realize that, if I'm not easy to work with, if I'm not easy to get along with, if I don't show up for rehearsals, this will be the last time that they cast me.
Yeah, exactly.
They will not continue to work with me, so I need to be professional.
Yeah.
And I think college can be a rough time, especially college theater, because it's a hard lesson for some people to learn.
Well, I assume it, at different schools, and I'm sure it's more competitive and the higher up you go, because I don't think State Fair or UCM are the same as Juilliard.
Oh, right.
I mean, close. But, I mean, when you talk about schools like that, and even some of just the larger schools, even in probably the states around here, you have kids that come in, and because they're theater majors, they were normally the star or one of the people that constantly got, a comedic role. Like if there was a comedic role, they got it. Mm-hmm. If there was a lead, this person got it. And when you start hiring or bringing in people, I shouldn't say hiring, that's the wrong word. NCAA is like, shut up.
Right. You aren't paying them.
Exactly. But when you have, people that come in and they've been the lead and they've been the star, and all of a sudden they're competing with people who have also done that, and potentially people that are better, it's a real pain in the ass to look at that and just say, like, okay, now I'm not who I thought I was.
Well, and that's I like to refer to that as the incoming freshman symptom, to where it was always my least favorite part of the year is the very first auditions where freshmen all show up thinking they're real hot stuff. Like, oh, well, I've had every lead for the past 4 years. So has everyone here, honey.
Yeah. Welcome to the Thunderdome,
right.
bitch.
Yeah, exactly. Like, okay, well, you know what? That's probably because you're very talented. Mm-hmm. As am I. Let's do this.
That's such a nice way to put it.
Yeah.
As am I.
Yeah.
I always thought you were going to say you're very talented for where you're from.
Well, I mean, that there's some truth in that too.
Yeah.
Not especially being from Missouri, not every theater program is super well funded or developed. You know, that's fact.
Yeah. I thought we were lucky to come from the theater program that we did. But I mean, that was, I graduated and you graduated after they had 3 of them. But I graduated the first year that we won a football state championship.
Yeah.
Guess who got more attention?
Right.
Guess who got more funds? And hey, they brought people to the table. I'm not going to argue with that at all.
Right.
But it was just one of those things like, hey, we have a really good show we're doing too. Hope you enjoy it.
Literally award-winning.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, but I feel like we came from a very, very good theater program. So, yeah, you're right. Some of the ones that, are in different areas of the state or, Kansas or whatever, they're not as good. They're not as well funded. So, and you might have somebody that comes in that's good.
Yeah.
But they're still the bottom of the totem pole at that point,
well,
too.
And what's sad, too, is that, like I met incredibly talented people that, just they didn't have high school theater. Like that wasn't even something that was offered to them. But they've, really enjoyed acting. They've loved singing, and then they kind of get to college, and that's where they bloom.
Yeah.
And I've met incredibly talented people who just didn't have any kind of support. It's sad, because you think like, man, if you had been like the very first musical I was ever in, I was in the 8th grade. So it's like with people who are just like that extreme amount of like can go all the way talent.
Yeah.
If they just had access to that from a younger age, then they would be set up for success a lot better than they currently are.
Right. Well, I think, it does come into play when you have, I think this is where, when you're in college, you have more freedom. When you're at home, it's a little easier because some people it's a little easier, some people not, but it's a little easier because you have somebody that you can depend on in your parents. However, sometimes that can be a huge misfire because if you have somebody like you were saying that's supremely talented, but their dad only wants them to play one sport, or they're saying like they don't want you to be in theater for whatever reason, you can imagine what's typically associated with it.
It's going to turn you gay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so if you have somebody like that, that's unfortunate because it's like that person is supremely talented. And if they love what they're doing, that's awesome. But if they don't like what they're doing or they see this as something they want to do more and you're holding them back because of a huge misconception, that's on you, man. And that's unfortunate because, I mean, when you look at the students that were in there, very, very few students that were in our theater program, or maybe it's different elsewhere, but that were like bad students, like didn't get good grades. I mean, I feel like a lot of the people that were in our department were, they were not only good there, but they were good in school as well. So,
well, and I think that speaks volumes to Todd and Carla, the theater teachers there too, because I do think there was a level of like expected excellence.
Yeah.
It was assumed if you were like a member of the theater community, at least in our high school, that it was like, no, you go to class, you get, I mean, you don't have to get all A's, you know, but it's like you put in the work, you'll do be a good
best. Representative,
right?
Yeah.
You do the best you can with what you have, and then you come to rehearsal every time.
Yeah. I think it was Little Shop when we did that, and it was my first. I'd only worked with Mr. Beam, and it was one show the year before, and I worked with Schnocky for that one, and then I didn't do the Complete Works, which I will always regret because that show was. You guys did such a great job.
I was not in that show.
You weren't in it,
and I'm salty about it.
I didn't realize you weren't in that.
I mean, I'm not still salty about it, but at the time, I was very offended because I was very funny and had a good audition, and
that's why I pictured you in it.
Yeah.
If you would have asked me to bet my life on that, I would be dead right now.
No,
I figured you were.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Well, when they did that show, I wasn't in that one. I just didn't. I don't even think I auditioned for that one. I think because I realized I think there was something about my grades. It's like I probably need to concentrate on this. Like it was I think it was the last show before. Was it the last show of the fall semester or something? And it was my senior year, so I was just like, something's not right, and I need to concentrate on this a little bit more. But I didn't do it and always regretted it. But when we did Little Shop, again, outside of the one act, it was my only Schnocky experience. And I remember something had happened with the football team. I probably shouldn't tell this story. That's fine. I don't care. But something had happened with the football team where I think it was reported that like a kid didn't show up on Friday for school and then tried to play the game, and he wasn't allowed to play the game. And so it was kind of one of those things where Shinaki was like, I'm not going to say that there's somebody trying for retaliation, but everybody needs to be here all week. Like, you better show up, because if we're missing, Seymour, we're going to have problems.
Yeah.
And it was pretty intense. Like, oh, okay, all right. But I mean, I totally agree with you. It was that kind of constant, when you're working with him, like, he's fun. He's a great guy. He's an incredible director.
Yeah.
But you don't talk back.
No. Which is something that high school Andy did not always realize. I think I was probably I think I was either his favorite person or his least favorite person, and I don't think he knew which one it was.
Yep, fair enough.
Yeah, but I kind of look back at some of the BS I tried to pull in high school, and I'm just like, oh,
bad idea. Abort.
And why did he cast you continuously? I wouldn't want to work with you either.
I think that's what makes it fun, is because once you go through those doors, it feels like it feels like your own little world with your friends.
Yeah.
I mean, as crazy as that sounds, it's like once you're in that theater and you know that it's just like you guys, it's the amount of camaraderie. Like, you always fuck with each other, but at the same time, it's the amount of camaraderie is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
In that particular community. And you guys had an awesome senior year, didn't you? As far as your competition and everything, didn't you guys take first place or something?
Oh,
like
yeah,
that?
yeah. I think we had a couple people go to nationals too. It was, yeah. We did very well. I was in the, let's see, junior year I did the readers, and senior year I did the one act.
Gotcha.
But either way, both junior year we won the readers state. Nice. And then we won the one act state the next year. So that's clearly awesome. It was because of me.
Of course. Take it when you can. I always say that we had a great football team, and then Mizzou had a great football team, not because of Chase Kaufman, but because of me.
No. Couldn't possibly be the guy who was playing for both teams.
Exactly. Yeah. It was me in the audience going, yeah, good job, Chase.
I'm his good luck charm.
I mentioned that when he was here, and he's such a nice guy that he was like, yeah, probably. I was like, no, don't
you
claim
take that.
Yeah,
you take that.
You deserve responsibility, man. I was a joke on my part, but he's super nice, so it was just like, okay, no, don't do it, abort.
Did you just say okay to that?
Can you sign this that says it? But yeah, I mean, I remember when we graduated, I thought we had a small class as far as the amount of people that were just constantly in the shows and everything, but I felt like we had a good class of people. And then you guys, I just remember looking back on that the next year and just seeing the sheer amount of talent that 07 had. I was like, this is going to be fun to watch. And then senior year, you guys took everything. Like, good job. I hate you all, but good job.
We had a lot of it. It's true.
Yeah.
I mean,
we took third in 05 in the one act, but I swear to God, I think the reason for that is when we got on stage, they had Carla program the lights, but you had to give your light cue to somebody else.
Oh.
And when they did that, I mean, the whole time.
Breakdown in communication.
Oh, well, and it wasn't Carla was mad, and I understand, because it was just a total breakdown on the person who was inputting. Because, I mean, there would be times where, we were hitting our spots exactly, and even if we hadn't, it wouldn't have mattered. I remember I said one thing, and it was me, Rachel Weesey, and Jared Hill. It was, right before our fight scene. And there's a pretty dramatic shift when I come on stage. There has to be two lights that kind of change because they feel like they get found out.
Yeah.
So Jared's character runs away, and then my character comes on stage. So you go from one light to three.
Yeah.
Not easy to do that quickly. All of our lights went completely. They're on the wall,
strobe
on the
light.
ceiling. It was nothing was on us, and it was just we were so lucky to take third out of fourth.
Yeah.
Out of four, just because it was you couldn't see us. We could have had the best show in the world. I could have been Laurence Olivier at the time.
Doesn't matter.
Wouldn't have mattered if you can't see it.
Yeah.
But I was so happy for you guys I was pissed because I wish we would have done it. But I was so happy for you guys taking first and all of that stuff. I was just you guys had so much talent in one class. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever realized it until I think it was the next year. I can't remember what the show was, but it was all you guys. It was one or two people from 06 and then you.
Well, I do remember thinking it was really weird. Well, not really weird, but I feel like there was a lot of people in my class who were just continuously cast a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And so obviously, like, those are the people you become close with, is
Right.
because you're doing every show together.
Yeah, you're there 3 hours a day together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then it's like just never ending.
Yeah, yeah.
So those are the people you become close with. So I did feel very lucky in that, like, you know, obviously I would love to hang out with like you and John
Right.
Pearson, you know, like all those Rachel Weesey, all those people who are like older. But
Yeah.
it was nice when it started to become like by my junior year. It was like, oh, okay, well, we're all just here forever together. Thanks.
Awesome.
Let's
Cool.
graduate.
Yeah.
Right.
2 years of just us. Great, guys.
Yeah.
I'm going to need you to go to a different school, though, because we've seen each other too much. But, yeah, I mean, that is the benefit, because the more you become comfortable with somebody on stage, the better your chemistry is.
Yeah.
I mean, your first show together, if you're trying to interact with somebody and it's a little blocky, but by the 5th, it's got to be a little better.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and you're able, I mean, it's like anything else. It's like any sport. Once you work with somebody that much, you're able to predict them more.
Well, and it's once, because, you know, obviously theater kids, not only do they just like hang out at rehearsal, but we all
the time.
hang out after rehearsal.
Yeah,
too.
exactly.
It's like,
Yeah.
okay, let's go to Applebee's now.
All the time.
Right. So I think when you spend that much time with people, it's gonna be fun. You know, like, you're gonna play and you're gonna develop really good bits. So if you know
Yeah.
you're working on a comedy,
Yeah.
that's what you want. Is you want a super close cast.
Exactly.
You know.
Yeah, I mean, when I was in college, I felt like our group got, because of that same exact thing, like nothing changed. It was like when you are hanging out at rehearsal, and then it's like, okay, well, what are we all going to do next? Like, where are we going after this? Are we going, like, to the apartment? Are we going out to the bar?
Right.
What are we doing?
Which is funny, because at 21, the answer is always like, oh, well, we're going to go to the bar.
Exactly.
At 31, the answer is always like, I'm going to bed.
Exactly. Well, yeah, I mean, and, you know, for me, it was an interesting experience because, like I said, I had an apartment off campus, and they had a dorm system, but I didn't want to do that. And so I was like, oh, I'll get a job. I'm happy I have a scholarship and can handle this. But I had an apartment where I could literally start my car from, like, if I left it at campus, I could start my car from there.
Oh, wow.
Because it was that close. And so, like, I was basically on campus, but it was my place. And so, you know, it was kind of one of those things where even if it wasn't, you know, sin and debauchery, and it was just like going to hang out and like watch a movie or something like that, it was always my place. It was always, we're heading to mine, which sounds awesome until you have people up like at 4 a.m. playing Guitar Hero and you have to go to an 8 o'clock class. Then it's not as fun.
Well, and also what's not as fun is when the cops get called because your loud friends are playing Guitar Hero at 4 a.m.
Yep, that happened a couple of times.
Yeah, that's not
fun.
That's why I didn't want to host. I'm like, listen, I'm not dealing with the police for y'all.
Yeah.
Like, no, ma'am.
Yeah, I had one apartment where I got the police called several times, and they basically told me at one point, they were like, look, you know, we're not going to give you a ticket, but it's just, you know, if just know you need to be quiet or get some headphones, like get whatever.
Well, luckily in a college town, cops will do that.
Yeah.
I think,
well,
like
this was Sedalia.
Oh.
Yeah, that wasn't
Yeah.
exactly a college town. I mean, but I mean, they'd come to the door, and it's like, you know, theater kids watching The Music Man on TV. Like, they're really complaining about this. Are you serious?
Right. Like, all right, guys.
Yeah. So I ended up moving apartments because of that, and the one that I moved to I didn't have a single problem. But yeah, it was just annoying more than anything.
Yeah.
We're watching Little Shop. Leave us alone.
What a wholesome party you were having.
Yeah. Every once in a while, we could fake it. No, but I mean, it is interesting, and I feel like a lot of times the relationships that you make there when you hang out with people like that. I mean, I think about having Kristen on not too long ago, you know, a month ago or so. You know, it's so easy to just pick up a conversation.
Yeah.
When you've had that many hours like with the same person over and over again, it's very easy to just say, one, hey, do you remember when? And two, how are things going? Because you know, again, the same thing that you do on stage. You know the cadence of your conversation, and you can adapt that to anything.
And it's nice to be able to, like, I feel like especially, you know, similar to you and I, you know, it's like, okay, well, there's so many gaps to fill in. Like,
of course, yeah.
There's tons of stuff to catch up on. So as you can remember things and then always just add new anecdotes. It's
Yeah.
always fun to catch up with friends.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I'm having. I think it'll be the next episode, unless something pops up in the middle. But I'm having Phyllis Harris on, Emily's
Oh,
mom.
fun.
And all the stuff that she's been doing just looked incredible. But it was one of those things. She sent me I sent her a message, and I was like, I had a guest on, Megan Day. You know her. I know her. She suggested I have you on because of all the things that you've been doing. And I was like, I'd love to have you on. But two, again, like you just said, there's a lot to fill in here.
Yeah.
And they actually live. Like within a minute of my parents now.
Oh,
like,
fun.
Yeah, their house is right there, and then there's a newer subdivision. They've got that beautiful place on, I won't say, but
the house they lived in when we were in high school was beautiful too.
Yep,
Yeah,
that's it.
Oh, it's still the same one?
Yep.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So, but anyway, if you go around, like, if you take a left and a right, they're my parents. And so it's a little crazy, but so I go by there every single time, and probably like right around like the end of college or so, I just see like Brad out there like polishing the sports car, like what's going on?
Yeah,
let's catch up. Just kind of hang out for a little bit. But when I sent her the message, she was like, I'm a little worried because I'm the introvert of the family. And I was like, to be fair, this is a one-on-one conversation.
Right.
It'll be fine.
Well, and I feel like it's easy to be the introvert in that family. Like,
yeah.
You know.
You mean Brad and Emily aren't?
Right. They're very kind, friendly people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first time I played opposite someone else in college, it was just like, this doesn't feel right.
Because it wasn't Emily.
It wasn't Emily.
Yeah.
It was always Emily.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I guess it was Nicole Mayfield to start,
Oh.
and then that was in Guys and Dolls, but then it was her and what was it, Over the River and Anasazi. So it was just like those were a lot of hours, and especially Over the River because you have 6 people.
Yeah.
It's a 6-person show. So
That's a lot.
Yeah. And that one started out with Derek Slinger in the role, and then he got sick and couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was an unfortunate thing.
Yeah.
I didn't. Mr. Beam, I know, was close to him. I didn't want to bring that up with him just because I know it kind of is it's a tough thing.
Yeah.
But that was it's one of those things like you look back on and it's just like you see all these people from high school on Facebook, and the older you get, the more you start seeing unfortunate things like that happen, and you don't really know how to process it.
It's just like, oh, we're all like real people living lives.
Yeah.
And like sometimes shit happens.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
there was a kid from my class. I don't want to say just because it might bring up some bad memories for people, and it's been fairly recent. But I heard that one day he just didn't wake up. It's like, that's the most terrifying thing I've ever heard. And he had a little boy. I mean, just rough. And boy, you recognize your mortality at that point, and it's crazy to see that. But I mean, when it's somebody like Derek, who was part of the theater program and again around constantly, it's like
and just like in high school, he was a high school student.
Exactly.
So
and that's how you remember him as
Yeah.
a high school student.
Yeah.
So yeah, every time I see somebody post about that on Facebook, it's just one of those things like back to reality. Like, you better enjoy this life, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that's this thing started out just as kind of a marketing thing. Like, I'm going to have people on, going to see who I can have on, just anybody that I find interesting I want to talk to. And then there was a turn where I was like, I'm also going to have people on that I just want to talk to. Like, this is a good excuse, like you,
Right.
or somebody else, like,
Let's hang out.
Yeah, you have an interest, like you have a great story, especially since high school. Like, you went to Mizzou, went to UCM, all the interactions that you've had there, the fact that we share so many friends because you went back to UCM.
Yeah.
And then, working at the zoo, working at this company now, kind of being on all sides of theater, would have never known, but here you are.
But here I am.
And that's the best thing. So, I mean, it's been fun to kind of catch up with that, but it's also been fun to be able to call in, like, my wife's friend and mine too, but she was the one that was in the leadership program with her, Megan Day, who she's got a great story because she was working at Children's Mercy Hospital doing great things there. Actually, I think that's the reason that she knew Phyllis was from working there. And then her husband's barbecue competition team just kept taking off and taking off and taking off, and finally they were doing enough business with that because they were doing outside products.
Yeah.
And she is just a public relations wizard, just amazing.
Love that.
And so she just cut off, like, not negatively, but cut off ties and went to do that. And now she's been on like Home Shopping Network every other week for a year,
amazing.
it seems like.
Yeah.
But stuff like that's been really neat to be able to say, like, hey, here's somebody that's got a good story. And,
Yeah.
you know, people like Eric and Mr. Beam who just have story after story after story. I mean, you don't work with theater kids for, 30, 40 years and not have good stories.
Right. Well, 'cause that's the thing. That's the thing about Mr. Beam too. Is like obviously he has all crazy shenanigan stories from when we were in high school.
Oh yeah.
But he was like Todd Schnocke. He was his theater teacher too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like that's crazy to me. Is like when you've retired from a career that you've been in for, I don't know how long he's been. I'm assuming.
Yeah, 30.
At least more than 5 years.
Well, yeah. I mean, he was in theater when he was young, too, so I'm sure it's been, we'll just say 40-plus years of theater.
I really thought let's say 80-plus years. Sure.
Trying to be nice. No, I mean, he's been involved in it for, obviously decades, but he's just a complicated person, too, because he has, so many different thoughts and theories. I remember driving up with him to Nebraska to an International Thespian Festival, and I mean, we would just be talking the entire drive. Jessie was in the back. I think she fell asleep the entire 6 hours because it was like, these people are boring. But I mean, I just remember just listening to him, like, this guy knows a lot of stuff, man, and I realize how little I know about things. So with him, it was like, we started off talking about theater and playwriting and, shows and directing and producing and everything else. And then it, went completely out into the weeds. And I like those kind of conversations.
Yeah. Because he's incredibly interesting, too, because it's, he's really involved in, just the Kansas City community, too, because he'll go and see, every show. He truly just loves theater, which I can relate to.
Yeah.
But then also I remember for a while he, was raising peacocks, yeah. I think that's a true story. You might want to fact check that, but I'm pretty sure that's real.
Mr. Beam, comment on the Facebook post if that was the case.
We want to know: do you raise peacocks?
Yeah, I remember that I remember he was gone for quite a while. I can't remember if he was in. He told me he was in Colorado or Arizona. I can't remember where, but it was when I did the community theater show when I was Brick and Cat, and it was just interesting to I remember that period of time because I just sent him a message every once in a while, like, hey, how's it going? Where are you? And it was like, fucking a new place, man. I was like, okay, you're living my dream. I want to travel everywhere, too. Damn it.
Yeah. Good time.
Yeah, well, that's retirement, too. I think.
I'll never know.
Well, you were also working 7 days a week for 3 years, so, that doesn't really allow for travel very much.
No, just that couple trips to Alaska.
So is there anybody that you keep up with on a pretty consistent... I mean, I know Lucy, you keep up with on a consistent basis.
Obviously, we live together, so see her pretty regularly.
I didn't realize you guys were living together. Oh, nice.
We've almost a year now. Before that, I actually lived with her little sister for
gotcha.
a year. Yeah. So I'm just joining the family.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I still talk to Mike Gollier a lot. Michael Gollier.
Oh, yeah.
He's a very, very good friend of mine.
I
try
see a
to
lot
keep
of
in touch with a lot of people. But
I see his posts a lot on, I think, Facebook or Instagram or something like that. But, with him, I had I've got to have him on, too, because it seems like he has...
Yeah.
He's become a different person.
Yeah,
I like the person.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that sometimes too, just to be like, oh yeah, well, we're both really different people than we were in high school. But I mean, it's been almost 15 years.
Oh, exactly.
So, so you should be.
Yeah.
But,
I was thinking about it the other day, and I was like, fuck. I'm 32. It's been 14 years. I said something the other day, and it was 20 years ago, and I was still not young or not old, but not young.
Right.
It wasn't like I was 5.
Older than you were comfortable being for that being 20 years ago.
Yeah. That's when I went to middle school. Oh, no. I was in my first play. No. Yeah, it's, and I'm sure anybody that's listening to that is over 32 is like, yeah, F you guys.
Right.
I know what it's really like.
Assholes.
Yeah, my parents always say, just wait. Because I was telling you upstairs, it's like I turned 30 and I felt like the warranty went out on me. And so everything's just breaking apart. And my dad immediately chimes in. He's like, wait till 60. It's like, to be fair, probably. Yeah. The way things are going, I hope I'm still kicking at that point.
So that's how I feel at 31, is I'm just like, oh, this is why everyone told me I should be taking care of myself.
Exactly.
This is it.
Yeah.
I didn't listen.
And it's even the little advice that always pisses me off that I didn't listen to. Like, you should stretch. It's like, I should have stretched.
Right. Right. Or even just like that you should drink water.
Yeah, I have a trainer that is on my shit constantly about drinking water. So normally, I make the mistake because normally, and today wasn't the day because today I needed coffee. My brain was not, it wasn't starting earlier today. Not for the same reason. But no, it was not going well. So I think I had like 2/3 of a pot of coffee. So got a lot of brain activity going now. But yeah, normally by about 1 or 2 o'clock, I've downed a gallon.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's not
coffee?
fun. Yeah, sometimes that too. Yeah. No, most of the time it's like just a lot of like I have a couple of cups right now. It's like, okay, so I need to drink this one 6 times and this one 5 times. So that's my goal the whole time.
Yeah.
So all morning I'm just either hitting it through a straw if I'm on the computer, or I'm just slamming it. And it's like, okay, by 2 p.m. He can't complain about it anymore.
I have a 32-ounce water bottle that I keep at my desk, and I try and drink one before lunch and one after lunch.
There you go.
Because that's 64 ounces, and that's
Exactly.
like the doctor recommended dose of
Yep.
water daily.
Yep.
And then everything above that is extra.
Exactly. It's all icing on the cake.
Right, exactly.
Terrible, terrible icing on a terrible cake. Yeah.
On a terrible watery cake.
Yeah, he impresses me a lot because like he'll have his competitors, because he does competitive bodybuilding and he has a lot of people that work with him that do.
Oh, wow.
He coaches them, and I knew immediately that was not going to be for me because they drink like when it's competition time, he's drinking over 2 gallons of water so that he can then go through depletion.
Mm-hmm.
I look at that, I'm like, nope. I would just be peeing constantly all the time. You wouldn't be able to stop. I'd be drinking and doing that 24/7.
That's what we got.
Yeah, yeah. I wouldn't even have time to work out.
So you just have to put on some Depends while you're listening.
Yeah, just gonna have to do it.
Yeah.
What are you doing, Alex?
Do you want to
Don't
be
worry about
swole or not?
That's awesome. Yeah, I didn't realize that you were living with Lucy, and then with Mike. This is going to sound so bad because again, like Facebook makes you think, and Instagram makes you think that you are interacting with these people on a constant basis, and you're not.
Well, I
You're
always know
liking.
what's going on.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Like I know who you are. No,
Right.
you don't. But Mike and I can't remember where it was. If it was like the State Thespian Festival, International Thespian Festival, or what. But we saw it was a forensics. It was a 2-person. I don't know what. I was never in forensics, but it was 2 guys, and they were doing a little routine. And it was the craziest routine I think I've ever seen in my life. And it was a white guy and a black guy, and they were, and I'm not making this up, and he can spot me on this too, but they were talking about watermelons and fried chicken, and it was really weird because I don't know that dynamic, and I had no idea how to handle it, and I don't think anybody else did. Like, just shut up, just shut. But every time they do it, it was in this like weird rap, like spoken word. And all of a sudden, they would just like, I don't know. Yeah, I know. I can't. Mike might be able to describe it, but at the end of every like line, their chorus, and it wasn't even a chorus; it was a line, but it would just break up these different cadences, and they'd like both stare at the front of you, and they'd find somebody in the audience to look at, and they both go shaklack clack,
Shaklack clack.
shaklack clack,
Shaklack clack.
every freaking 10 seconds, shaklack clack. So normally for birthdays, I'll send Michael a shaklack clack, and he'll send me a shaklack clack.
That's cute.
So that's how I think we've kept up for the last 14 years.
Fun little birthday tradition.
And it's so weird because you don't even know. Like again, I've seen Michael. It looks like he's having, he's himself, and that's wonderful. But I really like. The truth is, I don't know him anymore.
Yeah.
And that's gonna be fun when we do meet, because that's the first fucking thing I'm gonna say.
Yeah. Hey, shaklack clack. How you doing?
Yeah, but I do need Michael to back me up on that. 'Cause
That's funny. I'm sure he remembers the dialogue. It was chickens versus waffles?
it was
Watermelons.
it was fried chicken and watermelon something. And I can't remember. And again, like, you don't even want to say that in public. You're like, no. It was a part of a forensics thing.
Right.
Which one? I wasn't in forensics. I have no idea what the hell I'm talking about.
Right,
But I promise it's real.
Right. Also, it was 15 years ago.
Exactly.
Get off my back.
Yeah. My memory's going too. Deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm really happy that you came on because one, I wanted to catch up with you because again, I think you have a really cool story for like that I needed to get caught up on because that's like when you see somebody that's now working for the American Theater Guild but then worked for the zoo, you have to find out what happened there.
How
did this work?
Did that happen?
But then I mean, we were great friends in high school. We saw each other a few times in college.
Yeah.
And there was also that. It was kind of a cool thing that I wish I would have almost been in '07 because I felt like I worked with you guys.
That was the cool class.
It was the cool class. Well, I mean, like,
Shut up.
no, and like my class, I really I never really, I knew a few people that were older than me, and when they graduated, like theater was what like brought me into a different crowd, and most of our theater department was you guys. So
Well, I would say that's actually what's funny is because I remember being in high school, like wanting to be friends with the older classmen because like I don't like a lot of the people in my class straight up. I don't think they liked me. So, I mean, looking back, I can't blame them. I probably was a dick. Like I'm willing to say that now. But,
well, you've grown. You've grown.
Right,
That's how you have to say you've grown.
well, and I feel even like by the time I got to my senior year, I was cool with a lot of people. It was just like at the time I remember being like, well, I don't like you because you don't like me. So I always wanted to be friends with the older class.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I had friends in my grade. I mean, there was Shay, Maddie. I mean, those Emily, obviously. There were that group, and then the grade below me. It was Rachel, Jared, John, Jenna,
Right.
that crowd.
Yeah.
But then with you guys, it was like you had 50 fucking people in your class.
We did.
And
yeah,
I mean, it was. I mean, all in theater.
Well, and it was because I feel like not only did we have like a lot of really talented actors and actresses, but we had a lot of really talented tech people in our grade. Like that's we really excelled in. I say we, the other people. I did not do tech in high school theater very much.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had a lot of people that were just very talented. Like they did costumes, they did sound design.
Yeah.
Michael Collier, he was the puppet guy for Little Shop. Like he did everything.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Anything you needed him to do, he would do.
He was reliable. He was there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, that's awesome, man. Well, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Absolutely. Do you want to share how anybody can get a hold of you, or do you want to just keep that to yourself?
I mean, you can feel free to follow me on Instagram at AndrewJoseph156.
156.
Yeah. It means nothing.
Okay.
Yeah. No, my friend Teresa and I, when I was about 14, we just made fun of people for putting random numbers on the end of their stuff, and we were like, okay, well, our number is 156, so we've
nice.
Just kind of, I still have it on mine. She ain't got it on hers. Guess
Calling
I hold
her
on
out.
to things.
Well, hey, man, thanks again for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.